Thank you for having me.
Now I'd like to start with, they say charity starts at home, so I'll start with the good professor in our studio here. Professor, did you see this coming? And the president cited security reasons and also a breakdown of constitutional order in Rivers State. Damned if he does, damned if he didn't. He has declared a state of emergency now. Do you think that was the right move to restore confidence in governance in Rivers State?
I will start philosophically. I will say if you fetch insect-infested woods, you are inviting a reptilian groove. Having said that, I saw it coming, but I didn't see it come too fast, the way it did yesterday. I expected that something was going to happen, maybe an impeachment, maybe a removal, because of the way things were going. But having listened to the president's speech, he has more information than most of us. All of us here doesn't have the kind of information he has at his table, because the buck stops at his table. But the speech to me was one-sided. It was just indicting Fubara as if he was the only person in the brouhaha. There were parties, and those parties may have caused one problem or the other. So my grouse was, why pin everything around Fubara? No, I didn't like that. I think that to me wasn't a bad test. Now, the minister of the FCT is not a governor in Rivers State. He is not a minister in Rivers State. He's a federal minister. He's not a commissioner. And that fight was started by him. So there's no way anybody can convince anybody that he didn't do certain things wrong. So it will be preposterous to just pin the thing around Fubara. That's my grouse.
They say he did something. He started the fight. Then Mr. Fubara took unconstitutional means during the course of that fight. Well, now the focus is on the unconstitutional things the governor did to defend himself.
Yeah. To me, I'm not a lawyer.
Feels like a trap.
So I don't want to go into constitutional issues. But we have seen that play out before now. We saw it play out in Edo during the time of Obaseki. He equally blocked some legislators from, because he went midnight and swore in some, and the people that were not in the swearing-in ceremony were not allowed to perform. There was no state of emergency declared. Now, we have seen situations too where state of emergency was declared and governors were not removed. During the Jonathan regime, in the northeast, so to speak, about 3 states, there was state of emergency. But when Jonathan wanted to remove the governor, I think he was advised against it, and he withdrew and allowed the governors to stay. It was only in the case of Darie that he was removed. And don't forget that Obasanjo is a military man, and he came from that military background. So it will be pardonable that a military man did it in a military fiat. But for a civilian in a democracy to do the same thing in a military fiat leaves more to be desired.
All right. Let's now bring in the lawyer to talk about the constitutionality or otherwise of this. But let's first of all take a look at this video.
Having soberly reflected on and evaluated the political situation in Rivers State, and the governor and deputy governor of Rivers State, having failed to make a request to me as president to issue this proclamation as described by section 305, paragraph 5 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, it has become inevitably compelling for me to invoke the provision of the section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State with effect from today, 18th March, year 2025, and I so do. By this declaration, the governor of Rivers State, Mr. Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy, Mrs. Ngozi Odu, and all elected members of the House of Assembly state are hereby suspended for an initial period of 6 months.
And therein lies the controversy, the foundation of the controversy that has flooded social media in the past maybe 12 hours. And I'll bring in Ilemona or Noja, you're as a legal practitioner. The Section 305, subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution that President has relied upon to invoke the powers of state of emergency have not been disputed, but the major dispute we're seeing is the fact that he suspended a sitting governor, suspended a House of Assembly members, all who are democratically elected. I want to get your legal interpretation of Section 305 as well as the controversies that it has birthed.
Hi, Olive. So it is very clear, it is without question, there's no argument that the President has the powers under Section 305 of the Constitution to invoke a state of emergency. What the argument is, and it is also self-evident, very clear, is that the President does not have the power listed in Section 305 or indeed in any other section of the Constitution to suspend, remove, or limit in any way, shape, manner, or form whatsoever the tenure of a governor of a state or the tenure or activities of members of the State House of Assembly. Nothing in the Constitution gives the President that power. In fact, the President's power to implement a state of emergency is not a unilateral power. It is not a power that exists at his desk alone. That power is supported by, has to be supported, the exercise of that power has to be supported by the votes of 2/3 majority of the Senate within 2 working days if the Senate is in session, and a maximum of 10 working days if the Senate is not in session. So the purported declaration of a suspension, a state of emergency, is by itself insufficient. He has to have published in the Federal Gazette that he has declared a state of emergency, and then that has to be supported by a motion passed by a 2/3 majority in the Senate within 2 days if the Senate is in session. So today is
Wednesday the 19th.
Yesterday was the 19th.
Just to interject, does it matter if the House of Representatives say that they were contacted before now by the President and he wrote a letter? In fact, I'm going to read it from the way the Punch reports it. It says, the President's formal letter to the House of Representatives informing lawmakers of his decision and requesting the approval has now been transmitted, and the letter will be read on the floor of the House during plenary on Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. And further legislative action will be debated and decided on the floor. Does that count?
Well, to me, it may be a courtesy that he's giving to the national, it may be a courtesy that he's giving to the House of Reps. I think that the Constitution is very clear that it says a 2/3 majority of the Senate in Section 305. And so he may have chosen to give a courtesy to the House of Representatives. But beyond that, I do not see the legal effect.
Now, Mr. Onoja, from what you said, it appears the President took on constitutional means to declare the governor and the State House of Assembly suspended. Does Mr. Fubara have any legal avenues or provisions to challenge this declaration of a state of emergency and, of course, a declaration of a suspension as we speak?
I will think that he does. My call would be to, not just to Governor Fubara of Rivers State, it would be to all the 36 governors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because it is in their best interests to immediately approach the Supreme Court and invoke the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court to give an interpretation to the President's powers as provided for by Section 305. Why do I say that? What this means, if this stands, is that on any given day, any given President can purport to suspend, limit, remove from office the governor of a state for, like President Tinubu said, 6 months in the first instance, with the intention to continue, to roll that over again and again, and just generally keep that governor out of office. we must know that this is not within the contemplation of the Constitution. Sections 188 and 189, combined reading of sections 188 and 189 of the Constitution are very clear that there are only 5 ways the governor of a state can be removed from office. These are: 1, the completion of his tenure; 2, death; 3, permanent incapacity; 4, resignation; and 5, impeachment. There is nothing anywhere in the Constitution that says that by any other means the tenure of a governor can be suspended, limited, he can be removed, or whatsoever. These are very clear unconstitutional powers. And I'm even saying, particularly to the APC governors, it will feel like you are protected now because there's an APC president in office. But what happens if it becomes a PDP or a Labour Party president one day in the future? Then what? What we're doing now is that we're stipulating, we're accepting, we're seeing an introduction into our jurisprudence, something that says that you can willy-nilly remove the president and the governor of the state from the office. And it even goes to the president. What is to say that a band of military people cannot say, oh, the president is failing, or the president has acted unconstitutionally, and so we are going to remove him from office?
Okay,
what treading into very dangerous waters, and we ought not to do so.
So what would be the response?
If you look at, excuse me, Olive, if you look at section 217, subsection 2C of the Constitution, it says that where the president deploys the military in the country for any, for the purposes of extraordinary measures to quell riots, insurrections, and whatever have you, the military must act in the aid of civilian authorities, not in replacement of civilian authorities. It must assist the civilian authorities to implement any sort of measures required to restore peace, order, and good governance. The purported deployment of a former military officer in the stead of an elected governor and the state houses of assembly. Mr. President said in his broadcast, Governor Fubara has prevented the legislature from functioning. And so, in effect, I am going to prevent the executive and the legislature from functioning. How does that work?
All right.
If you recall, when former President Jonathan declared a state of emergency in 2013, national leader of the ACN, as he then was, Bola Tinubu, made a public statement condemning the declaration of a state of emergency and said the president ought to have explored political measures to resolve the issues that the president cited. If you recall, in 2000 and I think it was 2006, when former President Obasanjo wrongly and illegally named a sole administrator to manage the affairs of Plateau State. Former governor of Lagos State, as he then was, now President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, issued a statement condemning it, calling it illegal, unconstitutional, null and void, and of no effect whatsoever. To then see the same person who had on two previous occasions, complained about the institution of a state of emergency and the appointment of a sole administrator in whatever guise, to then come, remove a governor, purport to appoint a sole administrator, and suspend the powers of the House of Assembly. He has no such right.
All right. So you say that the Constitution does not have any clear instruction that empowers the president to suspend governor and executive governor of a state. What would be your response to those who would argue that if we go back in time to look at the executive precedents, for example, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who interestingly was also a PDP president when in 2004 he declared a state of emergency in Plateau State due to insecurity and suspended Joshua Dariye, and of course had retired General Chris Ali as sole administrator, and then in 2006 in Ekiti when he suspended Fayose and retired, and then had retired Major General Tunji Olurin as the administrator. So the argument might be that whilst there's no clear-cut instruction, but it has been done before, and like they will say, heaven did not fall.
It was illegal then, it is illegal now. It was unconstitutional then, it is unconstitutional now. It ought to have been null, void, and of no effect then. It ought to be null, void, and of no effect now. President Obasanjo didn't have the power to do so. President Tinubu doesn't have the power to do so. It is very simple, very straightforward. There ought not to be any sort of argument about it. Our constitution is very clear. Section 1, subsection 1. This constitution is the supreme law of this land. Section 1, subsection 3. Any actions or any laws made by anybody else that contravene the provisions of this constitution are illegal, null, void, and of no effect whatsoever to the extent of that inconsistency. It is very clear. There need not to be any argument. In fact, how confident I am about this is that we said, okay, let us enrich Nigeria's jurisprudential conversation. And we actually made an offer on Twitter, myself and a group of other friends, some of them lawyers, they're saying that we will actually give, for the purposes of continuing legal education, and we've raised the pot of money that exceeds 2.37 million naira. Anybody that can show us any place in the Constitution that says that the president has any such powers, one person should show us. It doesn't exist.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Onoja. We'll get back to you shortly. I want to bring in Professor Na in the studio. There's a school of thought. I mean, we can argue the constitutionality, but let's look at the reality. The reality is that this state of emergency has been declared and it's here to stay. Now, there's a school of thought that thinks the president acted in the best interest of the people of Rivers State, because we've seen this back and forth. The State's House of Assembly was adamant to even listen or sit down with the governor. It couldn't do anything. Therefore, there was a break down in law and order. People have called it a no victor, no vanquished situation, because the FCT minister, from his body language, would have supported the impeachment of Governor Fubara. It didn't happen. And the State's House of Assembly members have been suspended. In street parlance, this is what they call 1-1 goalless draw. So don't you think the president acted after meeting with his national security advisor and service chiefs in the best interest of the country? And the context of River State is different from Plateau and the Northeast because there's economic ramifications. We have critical national infrastructure there. What do you make of the president's declaration in that sense, or that school of thought?
Let me start from the president's speech. He said the governor failed to approach him to declare a state of emergency. But I think that's a one-sided affair, like I said earlier. He failed to tell the nation that there was no state assembly that will move that motion and then approve the motion and send it to the governor, because there should be a 2/3 majority of the House of Assembly approving that state of emergency, then forwarding it to governor that will enable the governor to approach the president. The president didn't tell us that there was no state assembly to do that. But he was accusing the governor of not approaching him. How would the governor approach him? From the blues? No, it's not right. Well, a school of thought might say he did that in the best interest of the country. Another school of thought will say no, because he had ample opportunity to do so earlier than now. I will give you a typical example. We had a near similar example in Lagos State. He called in the people that were involved and brokered peace almost instantly, although that's a peace in the graveyard, because that matter is still in court. However, one expected that he would have, people have been saying, call the FCT minister to order, and he failed to do that. Again, the PANDEF, for instance, met him, and they agreed they are going to have a truce. The FCT minister refused to attend that truce. And if you listen to the body language of Fubara, he has been saying, I want to tow the path of peace. So, you see, I felt very...
But people said it came a little bit too late.
It's better late than never. At least he made the move to reconcile. What are people that didn't make any move to reconcile at all? No, it's better late than never. If he had made a move to reconcile, it should have been represented, you know. At the end of the day, these people did not appreciate the late move he's making to, maybe he realized late that look, it is better to Jojo than to war.
The suspension, the suspension of the Amewule lawmakers and all the lawmakers, is it not balanced in the sense of it, if you say the president was one-sided in,
okay, if he want to balance it, he would have suspended the city minister too.
I mean, it's not a party to...
No, because he's the part of the problem.
It seems that Onoja has something to say about that. Please go ahead.
Now, the Constitution is also very clear. Section 68, I know the 68 applies to the members of the National Assembly. However, the Constitution is also very clear. If you're duly elected into office as a member of the legislature and you leave the party on which platform you were elected to another party, you automatically lose your seat. Of course, there is a proviso that says, except if the party that you are leaving is affected by internal conflict to the point where it cannot function. There's an internal division of that political party. Now, that provision of the Constitution was interpreted in Olusegun Abegunde and others versus the Ondo State House of Assembly, where the Supreme Court said the only basis that you can move from one political party to another if you're a member of the legislature and retain your seat is that your political party must be so broken down that it cannot function.
Yeah.
That if your political party can function in any way, shape, or form whatsoever, if you leave one party to the other, you must lose yours. These members purported to have left. Their seats were declared vacant in furtherance of the provisions of the law. There is a case pending at the Supreme Court on this matter of the validity of their defection or not.
So the question about the judgment in February that was given, because we also hear part of the argument would be that was the matter of the legality of these party members. Was it a prayer that was brought before the Supreme Court? No. So would you say that maybe the court has erred in its delivery? Would you say that the judiciary has some responsibility in all of this?
Yeah, the judiciary, of course, bears a responsibility. Of course they do. The matter relating to the pendency of the validity of the members of the House of Assembly had not been dealt with. It hasn't been dealt with.
It's still a matter of the High Court.
It's still before the courts. The courts have failed to. Oh no, I will take my statement back. The courts have not yet given a declaration on that. It is still before. So to come and say that, oh, there is an issue there, particularly when we have a Supreme Court. I mean, during that, a Supreme Court judgment from 2014 or 2015, that is, is a matter that is sub judice. To then say that, oh, this person has failed to abide or to do something on a matter that is sub judice. How does that work?
Let's quickly head to X. We're not the only ones reacting to this. A number of prominent Nigerians as well have shared their thoughts on this, and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is one of them. So we'll share what their tweets are. And Alhaji Atiku Abubakar talked about the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State reeks of political manipulation and outright bad faith. Anyone paying attention to the unfolding crisis knows that Bola Tinubu has been a vested partisan actor in the political turmoil engulfing Rivers. His blatant refusal or calculated negligence in preventing this escalation is nothing short of disgraceful. Beyond the political scheming in Rivers, the brazen security breaches that led to the condemnable destruction of national infrastructure in the state land squarely on the president's desk. Tinubu cannot evade responsibility for the chaos his administration has either enabled or failed to prevent. It's an unforgivable failure that under Tinubu's watch, the Niger Delta has been thrown back into an era of violent unrest and instability, undoing the hard-won peace secured by the late President Umaru Yar'Adua. Years of progress have been recklessly erased in pursuit of selfish political calculations. If federal infrastructure in Rivers has been compromised, the president bears full responsibility. Punishing the people of Rivers State just to serve the political gamesmanship between the governor and official President Bola Ahmed Tinubu enablers in the federal government is nothing less than an assault on democracy and must be condemned in the strongest terms. But he's not the only one. We also have Shehu Sani, who's reacted to this, and Shehu Sani says the impeaching forces and the impeachment target can now rest for 6 months. Inibehe also shared his thoughts on this, and he said President Tinubu has no constitutional authority or power to suspend the governor of Rivers State and the members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. The emergency powers under the 1999 Constitution does not give such powers to the president. I will respond more elaborately later. Reno Mokri, of course, reacted to this, and in his tweet he says, this is how President Bola Tinubu will start looking at governors, because by this singular action of the president, every governor in Nigeria will now look at Rivers State and sit up from henceforth. If it can happen to them, it can be done to them if they allow their state to degenerate. I foresee better service delivery in governance at the state and local government levels from now onwards. Do you agree,
these are the
Professor?
fears that Onoja also raised.
Yeah.
It could happen to any one of you.
But he says that he thinks it's in the interest, in the best interest of service delivery in the state. Do you agree, Professor?
No, I don't agree with that, because but before I go into that, there's an impression I want to correct. Just like the lawyer said, I'm aware that the defection of those 27 lawmakers in Rivers State was not before the Supreme Court. And I'm equally aware that the courts are not for the Christmas. They don't give you a prayer you did not ask for. I'm equally aware that that matter is at the High Court as we speak. So, like I said, it will be sub judice, for people to begin to say that they have defected or they are not defected. Let the court do their bidding.
Yes.
Having said that, I want to say that it might not be in the best interest of Rivers State. Recall that even in the president's speech, he said that the administrator cannot make new laws. He can only,
he can only enforce the laws and then maybe make regulations
that will go to the
Federal Executive Council.
Yes.
To be approved. And that's why some of us, I know somebody will say, why suspend Wike? Is Wike part of the deal? No, yes. Wike is part of fake. That will equally take decision on Rivers State.
One of the and 6 ministers, in fact.
And he's one of the major actors in this problem. So some of us believe that if the president wants to be fair, he should equally suspend Wike.
Do you agree with that, Ilemona Onoja? Do you think that the president should have suspended Nyesom Wike as well?
If you are dealing with all these issues, if you're going to deal with the issues that have been created, of course he's a party to the issues. Anybody who says that the minister of the FCT is not involved in whatever the political situation is in Rivers State, is being naive or is trying to fool the Nigerian people. And we're wiser than that. There's been an ongoing fight against, there's been an ongoing fight. It's been coming for months. We know all that is going on in Rivers State. And it makes no sense to come. What he's effectively done is that he has gone and held one, instead of being an impartial arbiter or an impartial party, he has held one of the two contending parties. And he held that one down so that the other person can be coaching him. It makes no sense. If anything, rather than this purported, I'm intervening to calm the issues down in Rivers State, what the president has done is descend into the arena, take sides with one person, and in so doing, he's actually exacerbating the conflict in Rivers State. I would like to pick up the last paragraph of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar tweet, where he says if there is a failure of infrastructure, or if infrastructure in Rivers State are being compromised, it is President Bola Tinubu's responsibility. He's very correct. The pipelines in the Niger Delta, as well as the oil in the Niger Delta, authority over the pipelines are deposited with the federal government. The federal government is the is the arm of government with supervisory authority over pipelines and over crude oil in this country. So if the federal government cannot secure its own facilities, it cannot purport to blame a state government. A step further, the federal government has entered into pipeline security and pipeline monitoring contracts with security agencies formed by now this is just going to be very straightforward, with security companies formed by former militants in the Niger Delta. You've given billions of naira worth of contracts to people to provide you pipeline security. If your contractors, the federal government contractors, not the state government contractors, if your contractors have failed, the state government is not a party to contract.
But Mr. Roger, he did say, Mr. President in his broadcast, did say that Governor Fubara made no mentions about dousing the tension, no appeal to agitators to put down their arms, and he didn't appeal to them to stop this violence. So his silence might have been inferred as consent.
Is the president saying that when OPC was operating in Lagos State so many years back, it was his responsibility as governor to come and say, oh, you must put down your arms? Or it was the responsibility of the federal government? Are we saying that it is the responsibility of all the governors for which, if they do not exercise, they can be removed? All the governors of the north, where Boko Haram and all these thugs and marauders and what they call them, insurgents are operating. That if they do not come out and condemn the activities of these of Boko Haram, then we can remove them from office. Is he saying that the vice president ought to have been removed from office because Boko Haram was operating in Borno State? Is that what he's saying? It contradicts his own comments made in 2013. It simply is unlawful. You cannot purport to say, oh, you did not condemn the activities of criminals. That means, what he's saying is that this means that every day in this country, because of the failure of security, our governors are supposed to be on radio, television, pages of newspaper, social media, and so on. Mm-hmm. Every time there's an act of a criminal group, they must quickly rush to the media and condemn it. Otherwise, they can be removed from office.
Okay.
That makes sense.
All right. Let's bring in Professor Nna as quickly as possible, because we need to also get reactions from the FCT. Professor Nna.
You see, blaming the governor for not, dousing the tension or saying anything about the tension. For me, the question I would like to ask is, does he have security reports? And I'm asking that question based on the last local government election. Recall that the Nigerian police refused to provide security for him. We have been saying this over and over again. Governors are called the chief security officers of their states, but the police commissioners don't take orders from them. They take orders from Abuja.
In name only.
Yes. So they take orders from Abuja. Now, in that feat, he had to use local security to run that local government election that has been voided by the Supreme Court. Now, the question is, does he have security reports, enough security report to make informed information or informed comments? That's what we're saying. So it's not enough to say he should have done something.
You don't need security report to make comments on agitators saying we'll blow up pipelines and all of that.
Okay. Now,
you can respond.
Now, did you listen to the FCT minister's provocative statements asking who are the militants?
No,
you don't ask a man who he is. No, you don't do that. In my place, you don't do that. You don't ask a full-fledged man, who are you? No, he will show you who he is.
So also, again, many people have said that the president should have condemned the statement
and cautioned him.
But the conversation continues. We need to head to River State. Professor Simon Nna, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
And thank you very much, Ilemona Onoje, for joining us this morning as well.